Hi Greedy 3Ds, today I'm going to be testing this Mobius 2 airbrush from Gaahleri. We'll have a little look at it, we'll have a see if it's working. I'm going to be painting up this arachnid from Starship Troopers. If you want to see it all working and you want to see what I think of this airbrush, stay tuned. Hi Greedy 3Ds. Now I have never made the claim, nor shall I make such a claim, that I'm an airbrush specialist. I use an airbrush to spray my models and I use them pretty much day in, day out. So I'm okay with working my way around one and I know what is a good airbrush. And the Gaalhleri Mobius 0.2mm is certainly a nice airbrush. Just starting looking at the lid, I love the way the Gaahleri put a complete breakdown of their airbrushes on the back of the lid for your convenience. You also get a good little quick start guide that's in English, so if English is your first language, well, you can read it. There's other languages in the pamphlet too, but for me it's got an English pamphlet which I'm happy about, which means I can work my way around it. Now the airbrush itself comes well boxed and well packaged in this little bit of protective foam, and under there is the goodies. First thing you will see is a couple of spare O-rings. I'll show you where they go later, but it's good to have some of those. You never know you're going to need them until you need them. And then there's the airbrush itself. As I say, this is the Mobius 0.2mm. It's got a decent weight to it. It's got a nice sort of silver and gold look to it, and it just feels well constructed and well put together. It comes with a little bit of its very own lube. I used to use needle juice, but this has got quite a big tub of its own lube, which is great to see. And it also comes with a 2cc cap, not the largest reservoir for paint that you're going to find, but big enough to do some of that intricate work that you are going to do. And it also comes with a nice little lid to keep your paint in there if you are shaking it about. It's got a push down and a pull back approach, the same as most airbrushes. Pushing down releases the air, and of course pulling it back will determine how much paint is released. You've got some control there. Right at the back you have got a fluid adjustment knob that will allow you to adjust it a little bit, but your finger controlling it is the most important bit. At the bottom here there's an air valve. It's nice to see this on the airbrush. This will allow you to reduce the amount of air going in, so if you want to do some speckly effects you can also do that. You've got this little connector at the bottom here that will either screw off if you've got a typical standard thread for your hose, or if you've got one of these quick sort of spring valve connectors, then that will let it do it too. So you've got a 2-in-1 option. If you haven't got that spring valve connector, you can buy them separately, connect it to your airbrush hose and then connect it directly into the airbrush. That's not too difficult to do. Now, as I say, all the things that come apart, all the screw fittings will screw off wonderfully. Everything fits together beautifully. The end comes off, the back comes off, it all comes apart. So the tolerances, what I'm trying to get at, I guess, without waffling, are you can tell it's been made and engineered really, really well. It's got that lovely titanium gold look. Now the end comes off, and I like to take this end off when I'm doing some fine detail painting, as I find if I can see the little tip, then I know exactly where the paint's going. But the whole rest of this will come off. The old nozzle will come off, and the nozzle cap and the air cap, and that's where one of the spare O-rings go. You can see the white and the black O-rings in there, and that's where they are if you need them. So don't throw these away. Make sure you leave them in the box and put them away, and you've got an extra 2 sets. You are a lucky person. I'm going to take off the fluid adjustment knob at the back, and this just unscrews all the way off. Now this is obviously used, this will determine if you tighten it up how far forward or backwards the trigger will go. So if you need some really fine control, then you have definitely got it. We're going to take the main handle off as well. I just love that screw thread effect of it there. That's wonderful. That will come off beautifully. That allows you to get at the little needle chucking nut to get the needle out, and there is a needle. As I say, it's a 0.2mm needle, and there's also a 0.2mm nozzle cap at the end of it as well. Now obviously the best thing to do when you get this airbrush is to put a little bit of lube onto your needle, so that's what we're going to do next. Now make sure you cut the end off your tube of lube. Don't do what I did and try and squirt it out with the lid still on. And as I say, I used to use needle juice, and I've still got a tub of that somewhere, but having an extra little tub of their very own lube is great. It's like Vaseline almost. So get it on the needle and just rub it all the way across with your fingers to get it nice and lubey and nice, and it will move through the mechanism really, really well. And then pop it back into the airbrush. Now you'll see here that I'm absolutely no good good at putting cotton through needles. I am as blind as a bat. I'll probably stab my finger twice before it goes in. There you go. Now we're going to need to put the end on. We're going to need to put the nozzle cap on and the nozzle itself before we actually tighten up the needle chucking nut. Just obviously we want to get the needle into the right place. So once you put those front two pieces on, just make sure that your needle chucking nut, that little gold looking nut there, is loose. Push it forward as far as it will go, and then tighten it up, and your needle should be in the right position, and you should see it going forward and back when you squeeze and pull. And once that's in, you can start to reassemble said airbrush. Now of course I haven't took this apart in its entirety. I don't want to do that. I think the majority of this video is going to be you seeing it working, but I did just want to show you this thing coming apart and how easy it is to take apart and put back together again. Tightening in the fluid adjustment knob here, and we are pretty much ready to rock and roll. And I think the best thing to do now is let's connect it up to the compressor and just see this thing actually working. So as I mentioned, I haven't got the quick release option valve that you may have. I've just got the 1/8 of an inch screw-in thread on my Fengde airbrush there. So it's a simple case of screwing it onto the airbrush. It's a fairly standard fit. It fits most airbrushes, to be honest. And once that's done, it's ready to go. I'm using a Fengde compressor with a tank, and look at that, all ready to do a little bit of spraying. What I'm going to do first, just to show you in operation, is I'm going to get a bit of airbrush cleaner. It's always good to do this as well with a new airbrush. I'm just going to pop a little bit inside there, and I'm just going to blow it through. And as you can see, the more I pull the handle back, the more of the fluid comes out of the nozzle. That's the very basis and the basic work of the airbrush, and it's all working fine. I've blown a bit of cleaner through just to blow any dirt or mess out of there that's happened during manufacture. I'm going to give it another little blast as well, just to make sure that it is tippity toppity clean, so that you can see it working as well. Now some cypress brown is what I'm going to mix with it on this occasion, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a little bit of hair brushing, and if you hold on the end and let the air flow through, it mixes. Now some people are absolutely livid when they see me do this, but I have always done this with an airbrush, and I'm sorry, but it mixes the solution inside really well. If you don't do that and you put the fluid in first, that is the mixing fluid, you're just going to get that out before you get the paint. So mix it together thoroughly. Now these are air paints that you're seeing go through there, so they are pretty much thinned anyway, and what you can see me doing here is just applying a little bit of brown to Man Spider, a model that I've made in a previous video, and you can check that out if you wish. And here you can see a little bit more of a uncontrolled burst. The first one I was aiming it very, very carefully, but this one you just seen it going on over a zenithal shading on the arm, and as you can see, it's just flowing lovely and going on there. Don't forget, it's a 0.2mm nozzle, so these are really designed more for a little bit more precision than some mass spraying, but it will do a coat of 2 across your model if you need it to. Now to clean it out, all I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these little squeezy bottles to blast it right down into the guts of the airbrush, and I'm going to power the old water through, and that's just water at this stage to clean it as much as I can. And once I've squeezed it through with the water, I'm going to put a bit more airbrush cleaner in, and I'm going to give it a blast through just to loosen any little debris or paint in it. And that's as simple as that, and that is how you clean an airbrush. You can use a little bit of a kitchen roll or something just to wipe the inside of the tub, but don't forget to squirt into the end as well, just to blow any little bits out of there. You can take the end off and clean it through, but I didn't need to. I just thought I'd show you really quickly the detail you can get with this before we move on to some detail in painting a model. That's a lovely control on the airbrush, and of course, you know, the further you hold it away and the less you squirt it or squeeze it or pull it back, you'll get a broader layer. So I'm going to take that end off, as I mentioned before, so I can see the nozzle end, and I'm going to use some demonic yellow here, and I'm going to be painting an arachnid from Starship Troopers. I've already painted it matte black, and I'm just going to use this yellow now to show you that you can add some finer detail on your models with the airbrush. It will be so difficult to do this with a brush and get even surfaces. You'd get straight lines more with a brush, but as you can see, using the airbrush there, it is squirting through nicely, and it's allowing me to do some intricate details on this arachnid. And I'm just taking my time. As I say, taking the end off the cap for the nozzle will just allow you to see exactly where the paint's going, and just using a little bit of care and a bit of bit of time and patience. I'm just putting that decals on there using this airbrush. This is great. The 0.2mm is great to get the details on here, as you can see, and there's quite a few details to go on to the arachnid. As I say, it's aimed more at higher detail. If I wanted to, for example, do a load of priming, I'd probably use a 0.4mm airbrush needle, but for 0.2mm, this is its perfect use to do those fine details that you're seeing going on there. Now, as I say, if you get really close and you put a very fine spray on, you'll get almost a narrow line. If you pull it back and hold the airbrush down a bit more, you'll get more of a splatter. And if you're new to airbrushing, or if you're not quite sure how to do it, then just get something and practice on it. That's the best way. And eventually you will pick up the knack. And you'll pick up the knack with the airbrush that you're using. Now, I've used Gaahleri airbrushes before. I've used Fender, I've used Neos, I've used all sorts really. And I can say that this airbrush is doing the job really, really well. I'm really chuffed with what it's doing. I've just changed the colour now to orange, and as you can see, I'm just going inside the yellow, so it's starting to get even more finer now, and I'm just laying some inner orange into the yellow. Incidentally, this Starship Troopers model, in case you were wondering, I've got this from Thingiverse. It was a free model. I'll put a link in the description as to where you can get it from, because it's if you like Starship Troopers, then you'll like my Rico model that I did before. But hey, I am changing the subject and I am diversifying a bit. I will shut up about that and go back to what I'm doing now. As you can see, we're just layering some of that orange inside, and now I am going to move on to red, and there's a few sections on the arachnid that are red, and I'm going to do that as well. So you can see that without the airbrush and without a 0.2mm nozzle, it would be more difficult to do this. You could do it with a larger needle, but this is just great for that fine work, and I hope you agree with me, and please let me know in the comments whether you do or don't. But that arachnid, now it's all finished, and this is it. I think that's done a wonderful job. There's a couple of areas where Tony himself didn't do a brilliant job. It's not really the airbrush. I made a few larger splatters than I meant to, but again, that's just me learning the airbrush. But I hope you agree that this is doing an absolutely wonderful job on the arachnid, and the Gaahleri airbrush 0.2 Mobius airbrush has done its job. It's done what it says on the tin, and it has painted well, and I am very, very chuffed with it. If you want to get hold of one, I'll put a link in the description. It is an affiliate link to Old Greedy, but if you don't want to use that affiliate link, just go straight to the Gaahleri website and buy it directly. If this is what you want to do, I'll put the prices up here now, the latest prices, so you can have a look at them. So like I said really at the start of this video, I'm no expert on airbrushing. I certainly couldn't take an airbrush apart to the nth degree and tell you every little thing that every little part does, but I can get by with them. And this video is never going to be the expert's guide to airbrushes. This was going to be Old Greedy 3D, who uses an airbrush regularly and paints his models, as you can see everywhere, using the Mobius 2, and telling you what I think about it. Now, I've used copious airbrushes during my time. I really have, from the dirt cheap ones to really expensive ones, and I've got to be honest, and I'm not just saying this, I've not come across one that's horrendous yet. They all pretty much do what they say on the tin, and they work. Some are better than others, and as you'd expect, a really expensive one will probably feel better in your hand and smoother and softer and do all the things that you want it to do easier. It's not always the case, but on the whole, generally that is it. Well, this retails for about $76, so it's certainly not a cheap airbrush, but when you feel it, you can feel that it's been put together and made well. The tolerances are good, as I've said in the video, and it does the job. It did the job really well. If you've used one or you have an opinion on this, let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested, of course, as would everyone else, to know what other people think, because everybody thinks, oh, he's a YouTuber, he's been sent it free, he's going to say it's good. It is good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's done the job. Let me know what you guys think now. If you like the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Please think about joining the Greedy 3D Patreon. I think I say this every week, but it's free if you want it to be, or if you want to support the channel, there's an option to pay a couple of quid a month just to let me carry on doing things like this and make stuff for you and do videos, etc. Thank you to my subscribers. You guys are the best, and I really do appreciate every single one of you. And I hope you've enjoyed the content today. Let me know if you've liked it or not. Let me know if you'd like me to do anything in the future that you want me to do, and we'll do some more painting, we'll do some more reviews. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to Gaahleri as well for sending me the airbrush. Hope you've enjoyed that. Again, see you next time. Bye bye.